Okay, welcome back. This is the flipped classroom for our essay body paragraph. We're on the third step. We're talking about citing evidence today, the two C's in our acronym for RACE, R-A-C-C-E-E. Now notice because there are two C's, you're going to have to actually do this type of step twice. So let's talk about it and we'll get into it here. All right, the C represents citing evidence. It is the third step in the essay body paragraph process. You need to complete this step twice because you need to give two pieces of text evidence for each body paragraph. So you'll be talking about a novel or a book. You'll be talking about a character or some sort of part of the plot of a story. And as you're discussing the answer to the essay question, you will come to a point in the body paragraph where you actually have to give some evidence that supports your answer. So you need to give two pieces of evidence, two sentences, two different examples from the novel or from whatever resource it is you're talking about. You need to provide two text sentences, text evidence sentences. So let's talk about what those particular sentences look like. There is a certain format for citing evidence. There's actually, when you break it down, 6 steps to putting together one evidence sentence. But it's not as bad as it seems because I broke the steps down into itty-bitty little baby steps along the way. But really, once you see the whole picture, I think you're going to realize it's not as complicated as it first appears. For example, I broke it down into such tiny little steps that when I said the first thing you're going to do is actually begin these sentences with the sentence starter in the. I mean, that's pretty easy and basic. I think you can remember to begin these sentences in the, using in the as your sentence starter. So that's not so bad. And then if you look at the second step, I tell you, you've got to list the book title or tell us what kind of resource it is that you're using. Is it a book? Is it an article? Is it a short story? So if you were to put these two steps together, it would sound something like this. You would sound, when you wrote it out, it would sound like this. In the book, in the article, in the short story, whichever one it is. The third thing you need to do is tell us the title of that resource. Now be sure that if it's a book that you underline it, everything else goes in quotes. Books are the only things that are underlined. So if you were to write these 3 steps out, it would sound something like this. In the book, The Ugly Pumpkin, and the title, The Ugly Pumpkin, would be underlined. Your fourth step is to do a little bit of a transition into the quote, into the evidence itself. You want to lead the reader into noticing that you're about to use a quote from the resource. So you want to use a transitional phrase that helps get you there. A couple of examples are shown here. Evidence says is a good one, or maybe you want to say something to the effect of it shows, or maybe even it explains. So once again, I'll put it together for you so you can hear what it sounds like. You would start off here. In the book, The Ugly Pumpkin, evidence says, and that would lead you to the 5th step. The 5th step is to place a comma after your transitional phrase, whichever one you choose. And then the 6th final step of putting this particular sentence together is to actually quote your evidence. What does it say in the book that supports your answer? What sentence do you want to use that helps show the reader that your answer has some validity to it? And that's what citing evidence is all about, using the resource to back you up. I put the actual example of what this looks like for you here in this box right in the middle of your paper. So let's break it down and take a look. This was the first step, in the, and this was the second step, book, titled. Third step, The Ugly Pumpkin, underlined. Fourth step, evidence says, comma, 5th step, and then here's your actual quote. At last, it was Thanksgiving, and I found where I fit in. Okay, so that sentence came right, I hope you recognize that this sentence came right out of the story that we read together in class. So, putting all 6 steps together, you've got a citing evidence sentence that will support your answer. Now, what does it look like in the paragraph? Let's take a look. Down below, I gave you the exact example we've been working with so far. And we've got the R and the A part of your paragraph. You've got the restating for your topic sentence. You've got the answer that we worked on last time together. And part of the answer was to explain a text-to-self connection and a text-to-world connection. So I need to provide two pieces of evidence that support the text-to-self and one that supports the text-to-world connection. So in italics, I added those two citing evidence sentences below, and these are the text-to-self and text-to-world evidence sentences we needed for support. So here it says, in the book titled The Ugly Pumpkin, evidence says, of 100,000 pumpkins, none are quite like me. So that evidence is there to support the text-to-self connection. You know, how I mentioned being different and was a connection for me, just as the ugly pumpkin was different in the story. Also, the second evidence is here. In the book, it also states, at last it was Thanksgiving and I found where I fit in. Now this evidence, the second citing evidence sentence, supports the second part of the answer, text-to-world connection. Once again, we're mentioning Thanksgiving, and he fit in finally at the Thanksgiving feast. Notice that in the second text citing evidence text sentence here, I did not give you the title of the book again, because the second of the two evidence sentences, you do not have to repeat the title of the book or the title of the resource, because you did it once already. And so you can simply just refer to it again in the book. And we know it's the ugly pumpkin because the first sentence already listed it as such. Some of my students like to take advantage of this. Others don't feel comfortable yet. They want to cover their bases, and they list the title of the resource in both of the evidence sentences. That is up to you, whichever way you want to work on it. More is more in this case. So if you were to write, in the book title, The Ugly Pumpkin, evidence says, of 100,000 pumpkins, none are quite like me. And then in your follow-up second citing evidence sentence, you want to say, in the book, The Ugly Pumpkin, it also states, you're more than welcome to put that in. It's up to you. You don't have to, because it is the second sentence, and it follows on the heels of already mentioning the title. Up to you. Okay, so once again, like I said, not as scary as it may first appear here with all of these mini steps built in, but I really wanted to break this particular sentence down into tiny, tiny little pieces for you, because it's a very important sentence and it needs to be done grammatically correct. There's a lot of little pieces to it that you can forget along the way. Some of the biggies are remembering what gets underlined and what doesn't. Rule of thumb, books are underlined. Every other resource that you may refer to is always in quotes. A lot of my students forget the comma here. At the end of their transitional phrase, they forget the comma before they put the quotes from the actual resource down. That comma is important. Make sure it's there. And one last thing to mention, after you put quotes around your evidence, you want to finish off that sentence inside the quotes. You want to put your ending punctuation inside the quotes. So just some things to keep in mind. This sentence is important. It needs to be done, formatted correctly, or else you're going to lose points here and there along the way. This probably is the most challenging sentence to write for the body paragraph because of all these little tweaks that need to be added. But I think you'll be okay, and that's why I broke it down in these steps for you. Please go back to this video as many times as you need to, re-watch it, evaluate your notes in front of you, take them out, take a look, and the more you look at the video and review, the more you're going to remember the steps. And of course, we'll be practicing in class. Okay, which brings us to the final part here, which we'll get some instruction on in class to do another practice down here. So looking forward to seeing you in the next flip video. Hang in there, guys. We're almost through the entire body paragraph. Look, we only have one step left. So hang in there. We're almost done. And you've been doing really great so far. Okay, see you on the flip side.